welcome to CrimeDivers. I'm Laura.
And I'm Jill.
And welcome to today's episode.
Hello everybody, thanks for joining us once again, or if you're new here, welcome.
Yay.
So today, just before we start, I got a notification on TikTok a few days ago, and it was somebody mentioning a missing person, just tagging us and, asking if we'd mentioned this missing person, so I'm just going to quickly mention that before we start. So, this is a girl called Layla Santanello. She is 20 years old. She was last seen on the 27th of June 2023, so this year, in Kingsport, Tennessee. So, 20-year-old Layla Santanello was last seen in Kingsport, Tennessee on June the 27th, 2023. She was last seen in an ice cream shop located at 2003 North Eastman Road and hasn't been heard from since. According to witnesses, Layla Santanello spent the night of the 25th of June 2023 at the AmeriCorp Motel, located at 1900 American Way in Kingsport, Tennessee. On the 26th of June 2023, Layla was seen going door to door of the motel, wearing a white tank top, black leggings and no shoes. Around 12 p.m. on June the 27th, Layla went to the Marble Slab Creamery ice cream shop located at 2003 North Eastman Road. She told an employee she was going to the nearby Five Below store to buy shoes, but she never made it there. So this is the last confirmed sighting of Layla. So if I'm just seeing if there's any contact numbers. Right, so there's been
Anonymous.
Yeah, tip line was set up at 423-212-5804. So I will put that information in the show notes. I will get a picture of her up on our socials. So if anybody has heard of her, I know. Oh, sorry, I'm going to describe her. She's a white female with blonde hair and brown eyes. She's 4'10" and she weighs 135 pounds. She has multiple tattoos, including Roman numerals on her collarbone and her daughter's name, Nova Grace, on her left forearm. And we also have the Kingston Police Department as 423-343-9780, or the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation at 800 TBI find. I don't know what that means, but I'll put all this information on our socials and in the show notes. So if anybody has any information, if they could just, as I was just about to say earlier, I know we're a Scottish podcast, but we do have listeners all over, in America as well. So
you never know.
Yeah, exactly. You never know. You don't know how far your post can get. You don't know who's listening, who's watching. So
exactly.
Yeah. So I just want to mention that. So So should we get on with today's case?
Yep. So where in the world are we?
We're in the USA.
And the title?
Murdered in Their Beds.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I know, not a good title, is it?
No. Shall we dive in?
Let's dive in.
Okay.
So Oliver, known as Chip Northup, and Claudia, I'm not sure, I think it's Maupin, I think it is, Claudia Maupin, were a married couple. And they were murdered in their own bed on the 14th of April, 2013. Chip was 87 and Claudia was 76.
Oh wow, so they're an older couple.
An older couple, yeah. So Chip Jennings Northup Jr., Oliver, of course, but we're going to refer to him as Chip.
Yeah.
He was born on the 26th of April, 1925 in Grand Island, Nebraska, to parents Eleanor and Oliver. He served in the US Navy during World War II and then went on to be an attorney. And he was an attorney until he died.
Yeah.
Chip loved reading, writing and music. He played the guitar and he performed in a few different bands. And then he still performed in a band when he was up until his death.
Good on Chip.
I know. So he received his undergraduate degree from UCLA and he worked as an attorney right up until his death. He moved to Woodland in California in 1953. He served on the Woodland School Board. He also served as city attorney for the counties of Woodland, Winters and Yolo, And in 1976, he moved to Davis, which is about 15 minutes drive away from Woodland. Chip was well respected in both communities, and he was a proud member of the Rotary Club. He was a strong personality, he was very honest, and he did everything by the book. So Chip was married twice before he met Claudia. Both marriages were long, and I read they were to wonderful women. His first wife was called Peggy, and they maintained a friendly relationship after the divorce, and they had 6 children together.
Oh, wow.
Unfortunately, his second wife passed away. They didn't have any children together, but his wife had 2 children, and Chip was a wonderful stepdad to them and was still in contact right up until his death. So Claudia Maureen Maupin was born on the 15th of May 1936. She was described as having a loving spirit, she loved to laugh, and she was the most compassionate woman you would ever meet. She enjoyed life and she lived it to the fullest, and she loved to hug people.
Oh,
Her mantra was to hug longer, live slower, and love harder.
that's a good mantra, that.
I know. So she had been a life counsellor and a spiritual counsellor, and she met Chip at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Davis, of which he was a founding member. So Chip's stepdaughter Merida, so she's his second wife's daughter, said that she went over to Chip's house one day and she met Claudia there. This was in 1995. Chip would have been 70 and Claudia would have been 59. So that's basically when they met each other. Merida asked Claudia how they met, and Claudia said that she met him in the man catalogue.
The man cow.
So of course Merida was like, what's the man catalogue? And Claudia showed her a copy of the church directory, which had photos of all the members in it.
Okay.
So she was a Buddhist, and she had narrowed down some of the religions that she thought she would be most compatible with.
Okay.
So the Unitarians was the one that she thought might work. So that's why she joined the church, because she's like, oh, this religion could work with mine. With me being a Buddhist, this religion and me, we're going to work. So that's where I'm going to find a man. So she knew what she was looking for.
Fair play.
So when Merida looked at the catalogue, she saw her mum's photo there. You know, obviously her mum's passed away by now. And she was like, do you know that's my mum? And she's like, yeah. And she said that she'd seen Chip in the catalogue before, and she liked the look of him, but then she realised that he was married, so she respected that and she stayed away.
Yeah.
But later, you know, when she knew that he'd been widowed and I'm assuming enough time had passed, she was like, well, do you know what? He's single, I'm single, I'm going to go and meet him.
Fair enough.
So she did. And that's the way that she met him. And Merida thought, I mean, luckily Merida she took that really well.
Yeah.
And she thought it was hilarious that the man catalogue was actually the church directory.
That's quite funny.
So it's quite funny. And she was happy for Chip that he had found someone else. You know, he was 70 years old, you know, and she was happy that he'd, you know, later in life he'd still managed to meet somebody. And she loved Claudia. So they were married like within a year of meeting each other in 1996. So Claudia had 3 children, 8 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren. Chip, I think this is by the time they died, this is what they had. Chip had 6 children, 2 stepchildren, 12 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. And combined they were all just one big happy family, and they were happily married for 18 years.
Screw Christmas. And buy all their presents. That's a lot.
Yeah, I'd be like, do you know what? No.
Yeah.
We'll do a Secret Santa.
Aye, probably a cheaper way to do that.
There's no way would you be able to afford to buy all presents for all of those people. So, yeah. So on the 14th of April 2013, Chip and Claudia didn't turn up for church, and that was very unlike them. They very rarely missed church. You know, they would only miss it if one of them was ill, or, you know, if they were away on vacation, but they would let people know that they weren't going to be there. Yeah. So when they
would just turn up, like, not turn up. Like, they just would not turn up.
They would just not turn up. So when they didn't turn up, people were worried pretty much straight away. So family members tried calling the house, but there was no answer. And later that day, when Chip missed a performance with his folk band, his son Robert and one of his grandsons decided to go to the house, because obviously this just wasn't like him at all. So they knocked on the door, but there was no answer. But they were like, oh, right, okay, you know, because obviously you don't want to think the worst.
No.
And they were thinking, oh, maybe they've just gone out of town, maybe they've gone somewhere. But by that evening, when nobody had been able to get in contact with either Chip or Claudia, Claudia's daughter, Laura, phoned the police. So the police came out and met Laura at the house, and they saw that one of the back window screen had been sliced open.
Mm-hmm.
So Laura looked through the bedroom window and she could just see blood. So the police looked in the bedroom in the window with a torch, and they could see 2 dead bodies.
Oh.
They entered the house and found the bodies were Chip and Claudia, who had been murdered. So Chip's son, Robert, the one who had gone to the house earlier with his son, he literally just found out that his dad and his stepmom had been murdered, and the police were on him, questioning him and his sons. And he was like, right, okay, they've got to look at everyone, and thought, we'll answer their questions. It's not going to take them long until they realise they're looking in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And started looking somewhere else. But for weeks, the police just kept on and on at them, and they were convinced that one of Robert's sons had murdered Chip and Claudia. His younger son was the main. I don't know how old they were. Obviously, they were sort of more. They must have been at least late teens, adults,
yeah.
you know.
Older, yeah.
So his younger son was the main suspect, and he was absolutely gutted because, as if it's not bad enough that his grandparents have been murdered, the police thought that he was capable of hurting them when he hadn't hurt anybody in his life.
Yeah. I think that's a bit of a quick assumption, isn't it?
I'll tell you the assumption, which is very flimsy.
Right, okay.
So their home was searched over and over, and police even investigated the guns owned by the family, even though Chip and Claudia hadn't been shot.
Oh.
And because of that search, with the guns, Robert was late to his dad's memorial service. So that just seems particularly unfair. It's like, I get it, you're investigating, even though, why are you investigating guns? But okay, maybe you need to find out background information or whatever. Yeah. But why do you have to do it when it's the memorial service?
Right,
I'm sure the police will know when the memorial service is.
So they could just have the respect and decency to wait.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I know they need to do what they need to do, and I respect that, but yeah, like, have a bit of decency.
Yeah, of course. So police took away Robert's computers, notebooks, and other items that he needed for work. So he couldn't even work because they took all his stuff. I don't know what he did for work, but, he was like, I need this stuff.
Well, aye.
And on one occasion, they examined his house for over 8 hours. They took out pieces of carpet, they took out a lot of the bits of the plumbing, and Robert said they just looked for evidence in the most strangest places, especially when Claudia and Chip weren't even murdered. They were murdered in their own house, in their own bed.
Yeah.
So taking out, I don't know, I don't understand.
That sounds really strange.
But Robert was like, well, at least they'll know for sure now that there's nothing to find, that he and his boys were innocent.
Yeah.
But what they did instead was the police found an old notebook that was one of his sons, and he used to draw cartoons in. And one of the pictures convinced them that he had actually drawn a picture of the crime itself. So this is what they're
based on.
A picture. So there was a picture that the son had drawn, and it was a picture of a figure standing over a bed holding a large knife with 2 people in the bed. But that picture had been drawn years before, and there were actually, if the police had bothered to look, there was actually loads of pictures before that and after it, because it was telling a story.
Right, okay.
The son had been telling a story, but it was like like a cartoon. I mean, maybe not the greatest subject.
No, maybe not, but still, yeah.
It was part of a story, which to me, it's like, but that's not really any different to somebody writing a novel about murder.
Yeah,
Agatha Christie, they're writing about murder, but this person, this laddie is just drawing it. That doesn't mean he's actually going out and murdered somebody.
No, exactly.
So I don't know what actually put, because that was obviously when they were searching the house and everything. So I don't know why the police thought them straight away.
Yeah, like, why was he the prime suspect?
Yeah, there must have been a reason for them to think that in the first place. I don't know. I actually found this. I don't know if you remember me saying to you.
Quite a lot hard to find information.
Yeah, I was saying that I'd sort of started writing a case, and I was like, but I'm finding it quite hard to find out information. So I do find that some of it is a bit vague.
Yeah.
So I've done the best that I could anyway.
Yeah, of course.
So, so as I said, so that was just part of a story that But that one picture was the sole piece of so-called evidence that the police found to incriminate Robert's son. And they continued that line of investigation for the next 2 months or so until they found the actual killer.
That's awful for his... What a shame. Like,
I know. For their family is grieving.
Getting put through that. And then, oh, no, actually, we've realised it's not you that's the killer. Well, oh, brilliant. Thanks for making my life hell for the last 2 months. I told you that from the start, that it wasn't me.
Yeah, and I get, obviously, of course, people are going to say it wasn't me, and they have to investigate, but to only go by a picture that a kid is, or
like you say, I mean, there must have been something else.
There must have been something
bring them to the house and want to investigate, like, the house and stuff. So there must have been something else.
I don't know what. But
otherwise,
it can't have been much because they were innocent. You know, none of the family did it, so they were innocent. So whatever it was that drew the police to them in the first place. Couldn't have been very much.
No, but I guess maybe they just...
But then they got aggressive with it for, like, you know, over 2 months.
That's it, because I understand if they've obviously got, like, a lead of something, then, you know, then obviously they would, like, you don't have to follow it, but you've got to obviously have decent evidence, I would think.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless they were struggling for complete, like, anything.
But, I don't know, I just think, well, if they were innocent, what were they actually finding? You know, what...
Exactly, it doesn't... I mean, as you said, I mean, without knowing the exact reasons, I mean, it's hard to understand why. I mean, there might have been a reason, I guess.
Yeah, I get that.
But going off what we know, it just sounds a bit crazy that they've actually put him as the prime suspect.
And put the family through that.
Yeah. Because,
as well, I'm sure this is a big family. You know, as I've said, well, the children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And nobody wants to think that somebody in their family is capable of doing that. Because that whole family was grieving. And to have on top of that, well, wait a minute. You know, you're going to be like, no, my cousin, my son, my brother, whoever, wouldn't have done that. But I'm sure there's going to be something niggling in your mind going, but did they though?
Yeah.
So that's, you know, as I said, like, when you're grieving anyway, and to have that on top of it, plus... out in the community, people are going to be looking at you. That's mud sticks.
Oh, absolutely. And then, you know, like say they're going to look at them differently and go, did you do it?
Yeah.
Did you?
So I'm going to tell you about who the actual killer was. So his name was Daniel William Marsh. He was born on the 14th of May, 1997, and he'd actually made local headlines when he was 10 because he was in the car with his dad, and his dad had a heart attack. So Daniel had, like, at 10 years old, had grabbed the wheel, got them to safety, performed CPR on his dad to save his life, and he received an American Red Cross Heroes Award for it. So you'd think, oh, good start, you know, what a laddie.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but like...
something went wrong.
Well, yeah, that was when he was 10, and he murdered Claudia and Chip just before he turned 16.
Wow.
So there wasn't much time between that, yeah. So unfortunately, Daniel's parents divorced that same year when he was 10 because his mum was having an affair with his former female kindergarten teacher. And this is when he started having homicidal thoughts. Because he was so angry with the woman that had split up his mum and dad that he wanted to kill her. That's when he first started having the thoughts. Okay. He was 10 years old and he was plotting to slit her throat or strangle her. That's what he was thinking in his head. That's what he wanted to do.
Oh, great.
So he would have dreams about killing people, and when he was 11 he told a therapist that he had fantasies about torturing people and he wanted to make those fantasies reality. I mean, 11 years old, that's
scary.
Young to be even thinking about things like that. He was diagnosed with adjustment disorder and depressed mood, and later he started threatening people with physical harm. When Daniel was 13, he started seeing a clinical social worker, and the intake form stated that Daniel had been having nightmares and temper outbursts, and he was also suffering with nerves, and he didn't like other people. Same, but...
I mean, yeah, I get that, but it doesn't lead me to want to kill anybody.
No, but a couple of months later, a couple of months after he started, he was put on Prozac, which he was to take once or twice a day. So he was 13...
Wow.
And he was taking Prozac. So, you know, okay. Anyway, at this time, he was also drinking alcohol and he was using marijuana. He would go back and forth between his parents' houses to live. But when he was 14, his dad threw him out because he was always drunk and stoned. So his mum, however, she was oblivious to Daniel's substance abuse, so he just lived with her from then on. So he also began suffering with anorexia, and he was placed in an intensive outpatient programme to treat the condition, as he weighed only 93 pounds, which is about 6.5 stone, so definitely need help for that. So he was later hospitalised for a year, and he was now taking the antidepressant Celexa. It was then switched to Lexapro and then switched back to Prozac. He was also given Abilify, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Sorry, we should have said at the start of the episode, Laura's just getting over COVID, so... Again, yeah, so she's not back to normal yet, so there might be a wee bit of coughing, so...
I'm trying not to.
Yeah, I know, you're trying, so I should have warned you there might be some coughing in this episode, so apologies. Yeah, so he was also given Abilify or Abilify, which is an antipsychotic med, and it was noticed that he was having out-of-body experiences 4 or 5 times a week. But I was like, I'm not a doctor, but I'm not surprised if they kept changing his medication that much. I mean, this kid is, like 14 years old.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I'm not even funny, but I feel like he shouldn't be on all that and then mucking around with it. And I mean, that can't be good for...
Well, I mean, I know when it comes to like antidepressants and things, you can't just swap them over. You do have to have like sort of tapering off and, you do it under the guidance of a doctor. But I just think, obviously, again, we don't know all the information. We don't know what the time span was and whatnot. But it does seem a lot for a 14-year-old. And plus, as we said, like his anorexia as well. And I'm thinking, well, if you've got anorexia, that surely taking all that medication
without eating.
I mean, we're not doctors, so I mean.
No, I know. I mean, obviously, medically, I don't really know what it means as such, but
it seems a lot, but it might be okay. I don't know. But yeah, as I said, I just kind of mentioned it because it does seem a lot. But he was still having violent thoughts, and his dreams about killing people became more frequent. And when he told a school counsellor about his fantasies, the police were called. And he was involuntarily hospitalised because of the danger that he posed to himself and others. So his medication was then again changed, and he was now taking Zoloft, an antidepressant, with Zeriquit, which is an antipsychotic. And later he was also given Wellbutrin, which is another antidepressant. His homicidal thoughts were getting worse, and whenever he looked at someone, he would immediately start to think about how he wanted to kill them. Just normally he would just see somebody in the street and it would just start going in his mind how he wanted to kill that person. Jeez. He would fantasise about a schoolyard massacre, and he wanted to become a serial killer. He began talking a lot about killing people to other students. And in art class, he started drawing like violent pictures, which were always of torture and murder. He would tell his friends that if he ever got caught for murder, he would plead insanity. And he wrote a detailed plan about how he was going to kill his girlfriend's ex.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
In 2012, Daniel had begun visiting a website called bestgore.com, and that promoted gore porn. And he also started setting things on fire and killing cats.
It's funny, a lot of times that these killers end up starting with animals and stuff, don't they?
They do.
They end up onto like actual humans.
Yeah, if a child starts killing animals, then you have something to be worried about. So in January 2013, Daniel told the school psychologist that he was having violent thoughts about other students. And when asked if he would act on those thoughts, he said yes, he had full confidence that he could hurt these people. A police officer was called to the school, but for some reason it was decided that Daniel wasn't a danger to himself or others, so no further action was taken.
I mean, how can you say that?
If this laddie is threatening violence against other people, I'm sorry, but that is a danger to other people.
Yeah, I don't think so. Sorry.
Well, that was good timing in between me saying, between me talking.
Get a wee cough in there.
A while later, he had another meeting with the school counsellor, And he told them that he wanted to torture people by peeling skin from their hands and cutting off their eyelids.
So, like, why was he allowed to continue being at school then?
I don't know.
Because to me, again, no expert here, but, like, that person should be removed from school. And obviously for their own safety and others, but, like, to help them as well. Like,
well, yeah, like, for everybody's sake.
Obviously be assessed by a doctor in a hospital, and if you need sort of psychiatric help, because to me that sounds like he does need psychiatric help, and I think you've got to take that seriously. Like, even if he is just mouthing off and never going to act on it, you can't say that, because clearly in this case he does act on it. I mean, I know that the people can't categorically say that he would or he wouldn't, but surely if there's that chance and he is openly saying, I want to do this, then you've got to remove him from, like,
you would think
the public life as such, like, from school, until you can actually properly assess him with proper doctors
and get him the help that he needs.
Get him the help that he needs, yeah, because I mean that's it. I mean, at the minute, you know, he's not done anything.
He's not done anything yet.
Yeah, so help.
Apart from the cats.
Apart from the cats, but yeah, but I mean, obviously they don't. Maybe the people don't know.
I don't know if they knew about that.
So, you know, give him the help that he needs, because then it might. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to stop him from doing what he did, but it might, you know, or at least it takes him out of that.
Takes him out of that situation.
Yeah, an environment where he can then act on it. I mean,
because I will get to it later, but he doesn't want to. Like, he's perfectly sort of, he knows what is kind of going on, and he doesn't want to feel like that. He doesn't want to have those thoughts. So, if he clearly wants the help, you know, it's not like he's totally out of control in that way that he doesn't know what he's doing, and he's just, you know, his thoughts are quite controlled in the way that it's like, I know I'm thinking this, but I don't want to think this, so why are they not giving them the help that he needs? Take him away from that situation and give him the help.
Exactly, especially for other people. I mean,
it's one thing putting somebody on medication, but you're still letting them into school. That's
exactly. I wouldn't like to go to school knowing that there's somebody that I'm in class with that wants to, like, kill people and stuff, because unfortunately you just don't know, like, he might just snap one day and he might just, like, turn on his classmates or whatever and just go crazy. I mean, you know, I don't think that's him though. I think that but nobody knows that. Like, I don't think, because as we'll find out, that's not what happened. He didn't just snap with the murders, but nobody knew that. But I'm assuming the parents wouldn't have known about him. I mean, like, maybe their kids have went home and said, oh, so, you know, Daniel's been saying he wants to kill people, but maybe they've not took that seriously. They're like, oh, I don't know. Anyway, we've got totally away from the... So he also told the counsellor that those fantasies only scratched the surface of his thoughts. So I hate to think how deep his thoughts must have been. If he was talking about peeling skin from people's hands and cutting off their eyelids, that's only touching the surface of his fantasies, of his thoughts. And he said that he didn't want to fight them anymore. This time the police weren't called because the counsellor didn't believe that Daniel was actually going to do anything to anyone. Right.
But that's only your belief. That's your thinking. Like, you should have still thought.
I think the fact
just to be on the safe, better to be safe than sorry.
Well, yeah, exactly. I'd rather. Sorry. I'd rather call the police in and get them to investigate it, and nothing happened, than not do anything about it and something happens.
Yeah. So as I said, the police weren't called. The council didn't think he was actually going to do anything. But in the early hours of the 14th of April 2013, when Daniel was 15, nearly 16, he left his mum's house and wandered the streets until he had found a house that he could break into. So I said, this wasn't just a spur of the moment. He decided he was going to find somebody to kill.
Right.
He had planned this carefully. He had put tape on the bottom, like on the soles of his shoes, so that he wouldn't leave footprints. And he wore gloves so that he wouldn't leave fingerprints or DNA. He wore all black clothing and a black face mask, and he took a 6-inch knife with him. He checked between 40 and 50 homes before he came to Chip and Claudia's house and saw that they had a window open. So this could have happened to anybody, like any of these 40 or 50
basically whichever house he was able to get into, that was going to be his victim.
Yep. And Claudia and Chip, they lived only 2 doors away from Daniel's dad. They were Daniel's dad's neighbours.
Wow.
So he sliced open the screen and he climbed in. He waited in the living room until he heard snoring, and that's when he followed the sounds to the bedroom. Because obviously he's got in this house and he's like, I don't know where I am, I don't know the layout of this house. So he just kind of stood for a minute to
get his bearings.
Yeah. So he went into the bedroom, he stood over their beds for about 10 minutes and watched them sleep.
Oh wow.
I know, that's just
I've
the
always
thought
had
of
that
that.
fear of like waking up, because like my daughter sometimes like comes through in the night and I've woken up and like she's there and it's like you get such a fright. That's one of the worst things. I don't like it.
I think we've mentioned that on the pod before. That sometimes we have thoughts that like if I open my eyes, there's going to be somebody standing.
I know, it's horrible. Isn't
But
it?
yeah, so yeah, he watched them sleep for about 10 minutes until Claudia suddenly woke up, and Daniel just started stabbing her over and over, and obviously she started screaming, so he just started stabbing her.
Yeah.
And Chip woke up, and he'd been facing the other way, so he rolled over.
Uh-huh.
And as soon as he looked at Daniel just stabbed him in the neck. And then went back to stabbing Claudia because, in his words, she wouldn't die. She was screaming and begging him to stop, but he just kept going until Claudia stopped moving. And then he turned on Chip again. Because he'd stabbed him in the neck, he was still alive, but he'd sort of incapacitated him so he could go to Claudia.
Yeah.
I could see you were going to cough there.
Sorry.
So I stopped.
I should have brought a drink with me. I've not got
There's
a
some juice there if you want to have a drink of that. I'm not touching it afterwards though. Do you want your germs?
Was it Vimto?
It's Vimto, yeah. Do you not like Vimto?
I like fizzy Vimto. That's not fizzy.
No, that's not fizzy. It's not meant to be fizzy either.
I know.
In case you were wondering about it went flat, that's...
Yeah, I know. I'm not so keen on the still Vimto. I like the fizzy stuff.
No, well, beggars can't be choosers.
This is true.
Yeah, so he turned on Chip again, so he just kept stabbing Chip in the torso and just kept going until he was also dead. But even though he had killed the couple, he wasn't done. He took out his phone and he put the torch on so that he could see better, and then he just kept stabbing over and over again, just kept doing it. Even though he knew that they were dead, but he said that he just enjoyed it. He enjoyed it and it just felt right.
Right. I mean, not right, but like...
That's how he felt. He said it just felt right. And then, right, okay. So he was asked how many times he stabbed Chip and Claudia, later when he was in the police station. And he sort of laughed and said he didn't count, but he reckoned somewhere between 20 and 30 times. But the autopsies revealed that Daniel actually stabbed Chip 61 times and Claudia 67 times.
Wow.
So a lot more than just between 20 and 30.
Yeah, like double.
He had stabbed Chip in the forehead, and when asked why, he said that because he had never stabbed anyone before, he wanted to see how effective the knife was. Because obviously, I suppose your forehead, it's just
it's
hard, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he also punched both Chip and Claudia once they were dead, and he said, quote, "I'm not going to lie, it felt amazing. It felt great. It was pure happiness and adrenaline and dopamine, all of it rushing over me. It was the most exhilarating, enjoyable feeling I've ever felt," end quote. That's so disturbing, isn't it?
That's very disturbing.
That act of violence can make somebody feel like that.
Yeah.
It's disturbing.
Very.
So Daniel told investigators that after Chip and Claudia were gone, he opened up their torsos, and he laughed while he was telling them. He disemboweled them, and he tried to take out Claudia's eye with the knife, but he said it was too hard. He put a phone inside of Claudia's abdomen, and he put a cup inside of Chip's, and he said he didn't know why he did that. He said that he'd actually been on his way out, and he passed the kitchen, so he was finished. He was like, right, I'm going now. He passed the kitchen, and he just saw a cup, and a phone must have been on the counter or whatever, so he just grabbed them and went back to the bodies and inserted them into the bodies. I don't know.
That's just disgusting.
And he said, quote, "Honestly, I just wanted to fuck with the people who had to investigate it," end quote. So he actually thought he was being funny by doing that. He just wanted to fuck with the investigators.
As if they took to...
Because they would have been like, what the fuck?
Why he's done that?
Yeah, because that... to see a dead body would be bad enough, or the injuries would be horrendous, but to actually see a body with a cup inside it and another one with a phone inside it...
Yeah, because you'd be left...
That'd be horrendous.
Yeah.
So he told them that he had looked up psychopath and sociopath on the internet, and because he said, quote, "Because I don't feel sympathy for other people at all. I don't feel empathy for them, and whether I like that or not, it's the way it is. I want to hurt people, I want to kill people, but I don't want that. I wish it wasn't that way. It's the way I am, and I'm it, whether I like it or not," end quote. So this, like, self-awareness shows that he wasn't insane or psychotic. He knew exactly what he did, but as I said, he didn't want to feel like that, but he was so matter-of-fact that that's just the way it is.
Right. Well, that means you need to be, like, not Roman-free.
So when Daniel was officially assessed for I knew I wouldn't be able to pronounce this. Psychopathy disorder, he scored 35.8 out of a possible 40. So that's one of the highest scores ever seen. Just for comparison, Jeffrey Dahmer scored 23 out of 40, and John Wayne Gacy was 27, and that they were considered high. So he was 35.8.
Wow.
That is... He should have been assessed for that a long time ago then, and he should not have been at school or near the public.
Definitely not.
So if he hadn't been caught, he had plans to kill again. He'd said just with a different mask, different gloves, different jacket, and he said, quote, "And instead of breaking in, I figured I'd get somebody when they were alone at night, out in the street or out somewhere. Just find somebody alone at night and beat him to death with a baseball bat," end quote. He didn't have anyone particular in mind, and he had already been out looking for someone, but just hadn't found anyone suitable. He must have particular requirements. I don't know.
Right, okay.
So I watched some police footage, and one of the guys interviewing Daniel said, So you told us pretty much that everyone you meet, you think about how you would like to kill them. So how would you kill me? And, like, what have you thought? In the couple of hours that we spent together, like...
What have you thought?
What have you've obviously, you said that when you meet people, you want to kill them. So what's your thoughts? How do you want to kill me? And Daniel went, quote, "Choking you to death with your tie, beating your face into the mirror until it broke and using the glass to cut your arteries, gouging your eyes out and just smashing your face into the wall." And then went, "Nothing personal."
Wow.
He went on to say, "That's just what happens. It's like breathing. You don't have to think about it. It just happens."
Wow. All right then.
So you're probably wondering exactly how Daniel got caught.
Yes, I am.
So, because as I said before, the police thought it was one of Chip's grandsons. But it was in fact Daniel's bragging that got him arrested.
Although just before you sort of go any further, after you describing how they died and their injuries and what obviously the bodies were found with the cup and the phone, to think that it was one of their family members that did that as well is like horrendous.
I know, because I mean it happens. Family members kill family members, but to actually do something like that, I mean it's unusual anyway. But for a family member to do that to another, I mean imagine doing that to your own grandparent.
Well, I know, and that's what.
No,
like, for them to think that he'd done that as well, and the fact that he hadn't, I mean that's just.
And that's probably why, as well as. That's probably why why the grandson was so devastated as well, because not only do you think that I'm capable of murdering anybody, you're saying that I've murdered my grandfather.
And like mutilated their bodies, basically, and stabbed them that many times, inserted stuff into their bodies. I mean that...
Imagine somebody... Imagine knowing that people would think that you're capable of that. That would be absolutely awful. It really would. I really feel for him and the rest of the family. So it was his bragging that got him arrested. He had told his friends and his girlfriend what he had done. So I'm assuming he had trusted them not to tell anybody. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So he must have trusted them because he did say that he was planning on killing again. So he obviously didn't want to get caught. So if he's telling people, he's obviously telling people who he trusts not to say anything.
Yeah.
Because I didn't quite understand that. I thought, well, if you don't want to get caught, then you don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
And they didn't tell anybody at first. He told a close friend on the same day of the murders what he had done. Then the following day, he told a couple of other friends at lunchtime. And then after school, he asked his girlfriend if she had heard about the murders. When she said no, he proudly told her about what he had done and told her how good it felt, but she didn't believe him.
Right.
The next day, he told another friend, and again, he explained what he had done, how good it had made him feel. He showed another friend the knife that he had used to commit the murders and the bloody clothes that he'd been wearing. His friends and girlfriend later testified that they didn't tell anyone about this because they were scared of Daniel. But one of his friends did eventually tell the school that Daniel was carrying a knife,
right,
and he was suspended. Mm-hmm. His girlfriend split up with him on the 4th of June, so that was nearly 2 months after the murders, because she felt intimidated by him. But a couple of weeks later, Daniel actually sneaked into her house using the dog door. I didn't know dog doors were a thing. I know you get cat flaps.
I was just thinking of a cat flap. I mean, I don't know what a dog door is.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's the same kind of thing, but just bigger for the dog. But yeah, it's a bit big if a 15, 16-year-old can climb through that
not
door.
Very safe, is it?
No, that's what I thought. But anyway.
Why are you letting your dog in and out? I mean, I'm not being funny. I wouldn't let my dog in and out if she pleases unless I opened the door and I was there supervising.
Well, why? If it's going into your back garden.
Yeah, true.
You let your dog out into the back garden.
Yeah, true.
But they should have a lock on it, I would think, because I'm sure you get the cat flaps. I'm sure you can lock them.
For like night times.
At night time, yeah. So maybe they did have a lock for it, and they've just unfortunately forgotten to lock it. But I don't know. As I said, again, a bit vague. I don't know what actually happened. But he did sneak in. This really scared her, and she told Daniel's friend about it. So the friend then just thought, you know what, enough is enough. Like, he's said that he's done these murders, whether it's true or not. He sneaked into his girlfriend's house and, scared her. He went to Daniel's dad and told him about the murders. Mm-hmm. Because, they're probably thinking, are we safe?
Yeah.
Especially because we know he's told us, so... But Daniel's dad didn't believe the friend. So the friend eventually went to the police, and Daniel was arrested the following day on the 17th of June. So that's how he was caught, just because he must have done a good job because he had tape on his shoes, he had gloves on, and...
So if he hadn't opened his mouth, he might have got away with it.
Yeah. I mean, luckily, hopefully they would have found him anyway, but obviously they weren't looking in that direction because they were too busy looking at Chip's own family. Mm-hmm. So the trial lasted for 5 weeks. His ex-girlfriend and his ex-best friend testified that he'd been talking about homicide since he was 10 years old, and he'd been actually hurting animals. I'm like, why were you his best friend and why were you his girlfriend?
Yeah, like totally. I mean, that's quite disturbing.
So Victoria, Claudia's daughter, could see that they were terrified, and she said that Daniel was just staring at, like when they were testifying, Daniel was just staring at them as if to say, I'm going to get you. You're like...
Yeah. How dare you testify
against me? And she said there was just so much manipulation and anger just seething from him while his friends or his ex-friends were talking. So Daniel was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, and he pleaded not guilty. But then he changed his plea to not guilty by reason of insanity, because remember, he always said if he got caught, he would go for the insanity. Mm-hmm. So his defence attorneys had him examined by a psychiatrist when they met Daniel. His defence attorneys had him examined by a psychiatrist, and when the psychiatrist met Daniel, he threatened to kill him. I thought, well, that's nice. So he was found, but that's probably in his plan. Yeah. So that he was found to be mentally ill. Mm-hmm. So his defence team claimed that the side effects of the medication he took, combined with mental illness, triggered uncontrollable violence, and that made him temporarily insane. So the jury found him guilty on both counts of first-degree murder, and they found him to be sane when he committed them.
Yeah.
He was then sentenced to life in prison, serving at least 52 years. But even though he was sentenced to 52 years, California law will allow him to be paroled after serving 25 years. I'm not quite sure how that works, but that's what the law says.
Well, I don't agree with that.
So what was the point in sending something to 52 if he's...
Exactly.
I mean, he'll be eligible for parole. That doesn't mean say he'll get it. But still, why not just give him 52 years and say you can be paroled after 50... You're eligible after 52 years.
Exactly. In my opinion, probably should never be paroled ever. Should be behind
Well,
bars for the rest of his life.
I mean, like, they talk about rehabilitation. I mean, if it was possible to be rehabilitated, and he's not going to be a danger, but if you remember, in the last case that I did, they thought that the guy was rehabilitated and he went out and killed somebody the same day.
That's very true. Very
So,
true.
how do you know?
You don't.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he's inside, and hopefully he won't get paroled after 25
Yeah.
years.
What a shame for the couple. That was awful. Poor Chip and
Olivia? No, Claudia. I don't know
Claudia.
where. Do you know what his name was? Oliver.
Ah.
That's what made me think of Olivia.
Yes.
Yeah, Chip and Claudia. You know, and they'd found love later on in life,
I know.
and they still had 18 years together.
Exactly.
And anyway, so yeah, that was awful.
Yeah.
But thanks to everybody for listening, and we'll see you next
See
time.
you next time. Bye.
If you would like to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, or Threads, we are crime_divers_pod. We are on Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, and it's Crime Divers Podcast. Our email is crime_divers_pod@outlook.com. Our website is crimedivers.co.uk. If you would like to join our Patreon, it's patreon.com/crimedivers. And if you would like to buy us a coffee, it's buymeacoffee.com/crimedivers.
And if you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, review.